Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's jump right into it. Have you ever wondered just how much a country's education system really dictates its entire political, social, and economic destiny? Well, it turns out the classroom is the absolute engine of a nation's future. Today, we're going to explore this massive connection using Pakistan as our primary case study. By unpacking the deep-rooted issues in its education system, we can actually start to see exactly why nations succeed and, well, why they stall out.
Let's anchor this whole thing on a brilliant metaphor from the American philosopher John Dewey. He basically said that just as a body needs food to grow, a society is utterly starved without a proper education system. Think about that for a second. If a system fails to provide this educational nourishment, society is literally starving, and progress just grinds to a complete halt.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the political and social fractures, then the economic toll. After that, a tale of two nations, and finally, the two-step overhaul.
All right, Section 1, Political and Social Fractures, the Symptoms of Starvation.
What's really fascinating, and kind of alarming, here is how the system actually rewards strict conformity over open debate. When you do that, you strip young minds of essential leadership qualities, right? Graduates become conditioned to just follow along, leaving the entire nation directionless. It's like a herd without a herder. Because outdated ideas and just following the rules are prioritized, it makes it incredibly difficult for society to adopt progressive concepts like democracy or gender equality. The mind simply isn't trained to question things or to lead.
And this demand for conformity leads to some really deep social fractures. Just look at the wildly different schooling systems in Pakistan. You've got madrasas versus mainstream schools, public versus private, English medium versus Urdu medium, elite schools, low-end schools. It's a huge divide. With students segregated across these completely different tracks, they're being fed totally different worldviews right from the start. Under these fragmented conditions, forging a united shared national identity is basically impossible. These educational divides literally become societal fault lines.
Plus, the starvation continues when we look at how students are motivated. An exclusive focus on ruthless competition instead of, say, moral compassion turns learning into a total zero-sum game. Students aren't just trying to succeed, they're conditioned to beat everyone else out. This breeds a society prone to jealousy and totally stunts the moral education of the youth. We end up with kids who might be mentally sharp, but they lack basic moral sensitivities. It's a real problem.
Moving on to Section 2, the heavy economic toll, wasting human capital.
Let's look at the numbers. According to an Aleph Allen study, 35% of parents simply don't enroll their kids in school. 35%! And tragically, most of these unenrolled kids are girls. Why? Because the parents view the education as practically useless for getting a job later on. When you exclude such a massive chunk of your population from the educated workforce, you are severely limiting the country's economic development and industrial potential.
And honestly, it gets worse. That same study shows that of the kids who do enroll, an alarming 41% end up quitting. And the reason is heartbreaking. They leave because they are subjected to physical beatings at school. Think about the economic impact of that. When almost half your students drop out because of an abusive environment, your economy is continuously starved of the skilled, educated citizens it desperately needs to grow.
So how does this impact science and tech? Well, by suppressing out-of-the-box thinking and relying so heavily on just cramming for exams, the system turns graduates into literal storage devices. Sure, they can memorize a super complex formula, but they lack the critical thinking skills to actually invent a new one. This fundamentally starves the economy of the innovative minds needed to solve modern problems and compete on the global stage.
All right, Section 3, a tale of two nations, the Koreas.
To really prove that education is the ultimate game changer for national success, let's look at a historical control group from about 50 years ago, North and South Korea. Back then, they were at very similar levels of economic and social development. But South Korea decided to actively nurture curiosity, inquiry, and a healthy work ethic alongside strong Confucian principles. They wanted creativity in the classroom. North Korea went the totally opposite route, using strict military-style discipline and amoral communist indoctrination, which completely crushed creative thought. Fast forward 50 years, and the results are crystal clear. South Korea is a thriving, highly developed powerhouse, while the North's approach led to widespread economic failure. It perfectly highlights how education is the true engine of progress.
Let's dive into Section 4, the two-step overhaul, a blueprint for revival.
So, the million-dollar question, how do we actually fix this?
It requires a comprehensive, two-step overhaul. This is our blueprint for revival. You can't just wave a magic wand and change the textbooks. You've got to fix the foundation first. Step 1 targets the operational realities of the schools, and Step 2 focuses on the actual quality of the learning experience.
Looking at Step 1, we absolutely have to root out operational deficiencies. That means strict, merit-based hiring for teachers, backed up by continuous modular training. We also need to get extraneous tasks off teachers' plates, like election duties, so they can, actually teach. And infrastructure is a huge deal here. The IDEA's 2015 report found an astonishing 48% of public schools lack basic facilities. You just can't expect modern learning to happen without clean water or safe classrooms.
Once those basics are locked in, we move to Step 2, enhancing quality. We need to shift toward personalized, student-based learning, which is often called the Japan model. It tailors instruction to different comprehension levels instead of just a one-size-fits-all lecture. We also need to expand incredibly successful initiatives like the Adopt-a-School program, which is currently being piloted across 1,000 schools in Punjab.
And if you're wondering if that program actually works, the metrics are wild. That pilot program alone drove a massive 24% increase in enrollment. On top of that, the Progressive Education Network found it improved the teacher-to-student ratio and boosted student grades by an average of 12%. The data is super clear here. Structured, quality interventions absolutely work. Finally, to truly compete globally, schools have to teach what we call HOTS, Higher Order Transformative Skills. The World Economic Forum identifies these as essential for modern success, things like cognitive flexibility, creativity, critical analysis, and coordination. Take a second and think about the schools in your own area right now. Are they actively teaching cognitive flexibility and coordination, or are they still just making kids memorize facts? Without these transformative skills, graduates are always going to face lower wages in the international job market.
Education really is the jugular vein of any country. If it's blocked, survival, let alone progress, is pretty grim. But as Akbar S. Ahmed beautifully put it, the dawn of development will shine on Pakistan's soil once the sun of enlightenment and education rises above its horizon. Fixing these foundational flaws is the only real path to national prosperity. A genuinely reformed education system will gradually heal all those other societal maladies we talked about. Connecting this all back to John Dewey's opening metaphor of educational nutrition, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Look at the classrooms in your own community. Evaluate the framework. Is the system providing the energy and nourishment needed to build innovators, compassionate citizens, and leaders? Or is it starving its own potential? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking these big questions.